Good morning. The July 10th, 2024 meeting of the Board of Estimates is now called to order. The board continues to meet in a hybrid format. For those here live, please take a moment to silence your cell phones and other electronic devices. Please keep your cell phone on mute for those attending virtually until the chair has recognized you. Hold on one second, because I do have a cell phone I gotta put on mute myself. What the heck? What am I doing? There it is. Sorry. There we go. At this time, I would like to ask our clerk, Celeste Amato, for any corrections, additions, and noted abstentions for today's agenda.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Good morning, everyone. We have the following corrections to note this morning for the agenda. Item SB 2412377. This is for Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. This is a First Amendment for Turnaround Incorporated. We are striking the action start date of July 10th, 2024, and inserting in its place January 17th, 2024, and striking the action end date of August 2nd, 2025, and inserting in its place July 18th, 2024. We have one walk-on item for the agenda this morning. This is item SB 2412596 for the Department of Transportation. It is a developer's agreement number 1927 for $5,099.68. The action requested of the board is to approve a developer's agreement number 1927 with the Associated Sulpicians of the United States. I may have mispronounced that, Mr. Comptroller. I'm very sorry. The transaction amount, again, is $5,099.68. And this developer's agreement enables the developer to construct a road, alley, sidewalk, water, conduit, street lighting, storm drain, and/or sanitary improvements to its new building located at 600 North Paca Street. This agreement will allow the organization to do its own installation in accordance with Baltimore City standards. A performance bond in the amount of $34,152 has been issued. And the Associated Sulpicians? Sulpicians. The Associated Sulpicians of the United States will assume 100% of the financial responsibility. Thank you for collaborating on that. We also have the following deferrals to note this morning. SB 2412262. A third extension, B 504568, providing various rental vehicles for $4,377,000. This item is deferred to August 7th at the request of the comptroller. Item SB 2412223 for the mayoralty soccer study IAA memorandum of understanding with Maryland Stadium Authority, deferred to August 7th at the request of the council president. SB 2412447, Department of Public Works, transfer of funds, WC 1283 water main replacement and rehabilitation for Baltimore Street, Smallwood Street, Reisterstown Road and vicinity, deferred to August 7th at the request of the agency. SB 2411806, Department of Public Works, transfer of funds, WC 1283 water main replacement and rehabilitation, Baltimore Street, Smallwood, Reisterstown Road and vicinity. This item is also deferred to August 7th at the request of the agency. And SB 2412418, Fire and Police Employees Retirement System. This item is deferred to September 4th at the request of the Mayor's Office. We have one item being withdrawn this morning, SB 2411810, for the Department of Public Works, WC 1283 water main replacement and rehabilitation at Baltimore Street, Smallwood, Reisterstown Road, and vicinity. This item is for $26,772,835. Again, this item is withdrawn. We have the following items on the non-routine agenda this morning. Item number 1 is SB 2412260. For the Department of Public Works, this is an emergency authorization with Routeware Incorporated for $400,000. We have SB 2412093 for the Department of General Services. This is a bid rejection for GS 16810 RRR Mitchell Courthouse roof replacement. SB 24-12446, Department of General Services, Emergency Procurement, Metropolitan Protective Services, Inc., for $4,455,360. SB 24-12436 for the Law Department, Shakira David versus Justin Michael King et al. For $30,000. And SB 24-12596 for the Department of Transportation, Developers Agreement 1927. We have the following abstentions to note this morning. The Honorable Mayor Brandon Scott is abstaining on SB 24-11724. This is a ratification for Johns Hopkins University Center for Communication Program. The Honorable Vice President Sharon Green Middleton has no abstentions to note. The Honorable Comptroller Bill Henry is abstaining on all travel requests and reimbursements. City Solicitor Ebony Thompson has no abstentions to note this morning. And the Director of Public Works, Khalil Zaid, is abstaining on the following items. SB 24-12323, Employment Contract for Michael Taylor. SB 24-12327, Employment Contract for Michael Fields. SB 24-12324, Employment Contract for Amber Nestico. SB 24-12328, Employment Contract for Layla Said. SB 24-12325, Employment Contract for Tara Barnes. We also have no votes to note this morning for the Honorable Council Vice President Sharon Green Middleton. No votes will be cast for the following routine agenda items. SB 24-11797, Second Amendment, Grant Agreement with Wide Angle Youth Media. SB 24-12456, Second Amendment to Interagency Agreement between Mayor's Office of Recovery Programs and BCRO for AROA Grant 442213. SB 24-12379, Grant 442202, First Amendment Interagency Agreement between Mayor's Office of Recovery Programs and the Baltimore City Health Department. And on SB 24-12454, Mutual Termination for Grant Agreement with Ahavas Haim Incorporated. Again, those were no votes cast for routine agenda items for the Honorable Council Vice President Sharon Green Middleton. And Madam Vice President, that concludes our opening statement for this morning.
Thank you. At this time, I will ask for a motion to approve and adopt the opening statement as read by the clerk.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the opening statement as presented, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The opening statement has been adopted. I now direct the board members' attention to the memorandum from our office dated July 8th, 2024, identifying matters to be considered as routine agenda items together with any corrections, additions, abstentions, and no votes that have been noted by the clerk. I will entertain a motion to approve all the items contained on the routine agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the items on the routine agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The routine agenda items have been adopted. The first item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 19, SB 24-12093, Department of General Services. This request is to approve the rejection of all bids for contract number GS 16810.
Excuse me, Madam Vice President, I'm sorry to interrupt. We resequenced to let Public Works go first, so we don't lose the director.
Correct.
That was 12260. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Well, yes, we are moving that one
Sorry,
up.
DGS.
And bear with me, please. Thank you. Okay, so hold that thought on the last one. And we'll start with the next item. This item on the routine agenda on page 183, SB 24-12260, Department of Public Works. This request is to approve an emergency procurement with Rootware, Inc. on behalf of DPW.
Yes,
Oh,
Richard
hi.
Lynn, Deputy Director, Department of Public Works. Thank you, Madam VP, Mayor Scott, Comptroller Henry, Honorable Board. Again, Richard Lynn, Deputy Director for the Department of Public Works. This item is to note an emergency procurement agreement with Routeware, Inc. The period for the agreement covers calendar year 2024, so starting on January 1st of this year to December 31st at the end of this year. The total contract amount is for $400,000. This specific routing software service is utilized by our mechanical street sweeping and marine operations divisions. It allows us to manage our routes, vehicle operations, and communicate with our drivers. It is also critical software needed to track operational data so that we can comply and meet our MS4 permit requirements. Our plan is that when this current agreement expires at the end of the calendar year, for these two specific divisions and operations in the Bureau of Solid Waste to fold under a separate routing software contract that was executed prior for routine services. That agreement is with Rubicon. It was a 3-year agreement that's going to expire in 2025. And so there is contracting capacity under that agreement, specifically with Rubicon, to fold in these two divisions. We have worked on an RFP so that when that Rubicon agreement expires in 2025, that we'll be working with BOP to solicit that advertisement and get that out into the public prior to the expiration of those agreements. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Could you explain a little bit more why this is an emergency?
Correct. This actually was under an original emergency authorization agreement too. That original emergency covered calendar year 2023. This essentially was an extension. Like I mentioned, this routing software is very critical for us to making sure we track the data accordingly and that we're able to communicate with our drivers that are working out in the field.
Thank you. Are there any yes, Comptroller Henry?
Well, sort of following up on the Vice President's question, I get why it was an emergency when it was first done going on 2 years ago.
Correct.
Why was no effort made to actually do a normal procurement before you needed to extend this one?
No, I understand. I think internally with staff, I don't think there was the right capacity to be able to get that RFP out within a timely manner, which is why we had to execute the emergency authorization again. Since then, we have worked on it, so we do have a very good draft on an RFP ready to go, noting that the agreement with that separate vendor expires in 2025. Now it's just working out the timeline with BOP to ensure that we can get that out to the public.
So that would also be why, even though this contract started on January 1 of this year, it's just coming to the board now.
There was some delay with staff in getting that noted to the board. Yes, correct.
Okay. I think I heard you say that so there will be a cooperative contract in place by the end of this calendar year?
So this specific agreement with Routeware will expire at the end of the calendar year. We have a separate agreement with a vendor called Rubicon. They were specifically utilized for routine services, so that's mixed refuse recycling collections. There's capacity under that contract so that we can fold
also
in.
do this.
Correct.
But when does and that runs for
Until 2025.
okay.
Yeah.
And then well, actually, I guess I technically have two questions, because the first one is this: what you said, this was for street sweeping and marine operations. Right. So do we also use this software to come up with routes for regular garbage collection?
That's the separate contract. That's with Rubicon.
Okay.
But it's similar routing type of software and technology.
And I guess, I don't know if this is, have you talked to DOT about whether what software they use for snow plowing, coming up with snow plowing routes?
I don't believe so, but we can discuss that with them separately.
Mr. Mayor?
And thank you for the question, Mr. Comptroller. So the city administration and I have had conversations with DOT about their software, but I also just remember that we are using a lot more contractors when it comes to DOT, and spending city taxpayer dollars to put equipment in private vehicles is not something that we would recommend. But for our stuff, we have started to have those conversations the same way about trying to make sure everyone's on the same system.
So actually so this is not just about route planning software. This is also equipment in each individual vehicle
Correct.
to do what?
To track GPS data, to communicate with our drivers, to collect that information. Specifically, in this case for street sweeping, we have to report all of those mileage and numbers in part of our regulatory requirements.
I'm sorry, the mayor would like to
Yeah.
answer.
I recognize Mr. Mayor.
I'm just I'm gonna answer it in an elected official, Mr. Comptroller. Just to be mindful, I'm not making jest at those who came before us. That up until 2 years ago, there was no GPS in any DPW vehicles. So, which is one of the reasons why our recycling and refuge pickup had the issues that it had, because let's just say we're in the middle of the pandemic and we take a crew from West Baltimore and send them over to Govins, and they may have never even been to Govins before, and now they're using a paper map to figure out how they're going to drive around in the middle of 2021, right? Like that was what's happening. And now I can assure you, having ridden in the truck and have Richard and the rest of DPW lose their minds because we left before they were ready for me to leave, that the route software works because they found us without me answering the phone.
Okay, so I guess I'm sorry, Madam Vice President.
That's
This is one of those times where
Important,
the answers to the questions prompt other questions. So is the GPS equipment that we have installed through the Routeware contract, is that Routeware specific, or is that GPS equipment so that when we move to Rubicon, we'll still be able to track the vehicles with the same equipment?
Identify yourself.
Good morning, Yvonne Moore Jackson, Deputy Bureau Head for Solid Waste. So the Rubicon and Routeware equipment is different. So if we move over to Rubicon, we'll have to use their equipment. The crews are already familiar with Rubicon equipment because we have it for our trash and recycling and also for our bulk collection. But it is a separate equipment that we would have to use to transition over to Rubicon.
Has anybody talked to BSIT about getting GPS equipment for our vehicles that is not dependent on a particular contract, larger contract, so that we have vehicles that we can know where they are and we can just send routes from whatever software route planning system we happen to be using? We can just send the appropriate routes to the equipment, to the vehicles?
So there is GPS vehicles on all of the city vehicles that goes through DGS, and they could talk about if you need to answer those questions. But the routing ware is specific to the type of work that's happening. So for trash and recycling, you need the software to tell you which properties to pick up. Has it been picked up? It's a way of tracking, has this work been completed? And also the same with street sweeping. It's more than just GPS. It's collecting the data for the routes and for the performance and things like that. So it's not just, where is the truck? Is the work actually been completed? Has the trash been collected? Has the streets been swept? Has the bulk been picked up? So
Okay.
it's also collecting the data.
So I'm gonna, I think in fairness, I'm gonna not hold up the whole rest of the meeting on this, but Mr. Mayor and Madam City Administrator, I'm just gonna give fair notice that I think I'd like to have a conversation with DPW, DOT, and BSIT about route planning just in general, like how we do this as a city, because I have, Mr. Mayor, I remember being at a council briefing where DOT said something similar about how we just divide the city up into essentially little quadrants, and then we let the contractors who know those areas better figure out how they want to plow streets. And I remember thinking at the time, and I'm pretty sure saying at the time, I appreciate the idea that, communities maybe know their streets better, but than random city drivers. But there's still the fact that there is an optimal route to go through all city streets, and different software is capable of finding that route. And so we should have, and we don't need to have that conversation now, but I'm just saying, I think we should have that conversation.
And I kind of think it's a good, friendly idea for just a briefing at a council luncheon as well. Mr. Mayor has been waiting. Hold your thought.
I was going to just chime in to say, I think one of the things that would help before even doing that, Mr. Comptroller, is to have you maybe go out on a recycling with one of the crews so you can see the system itself.
Sure. CEO Leach.
Thank you. Faith Leach, Chief Administrative Officer for the City of Baltimore. So I just wanted to provide a little bit more background. So happy to do an additional briefing and to actually show you the technology in the vehicles, as well as the technology that the folks at DPW are able to use to monitor routes that have actually been picked up. So we've actually gone through a pretty extensive process leading into the return of weekly recycling, where we brought on Rubicon. We had weekly regular syncs and meetings with them where we reviewed every single street throughout the city of Baltimore, and we optimized those routes. That was the only way we were able to return to weekly recycling. And so I then charged the team to do the same with street sweeping, because we know that there are some challenges around street sweeping and some more coordination that needs to happen between DOT and DPW. But before we can even get there, we need to optimize our routes. And so that's exactly what the team has been working on. And so what we're looking to do, because I've asked the same questions with the team about the different software, is to utilize one software, which would eventually be Rubicon. But because we had an emergency procurement from, I think, 2 years ago, we just extended that so that we can continue with the route optimization, but eventually we'll transition to one system, which would be the Rubicon system. But the route optimization that you referred to is the work that is what is being done now. So as a part of the route optimization, so obviously we're reviewing all of the routes, but then there's the GPS that's connected to it, right? There's the additional technology. So the system isn't just GPS, as the mayor mentioned. It is multiple things, including route optimization, but we're happy to brief you and show you the work that's gone through our route optimization.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. It's great to see those improvements happening. It's an important feature that's needed on our streets, so thank you for those explanations. Are there any other questions from members of the board? Seeing no further questions, I would entertain a motion.
Oh, this just has to be noted because it's an emergency authorization.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this has to be noted as
Yeah.
an emergency authorization?
Yeah.
And we don't have to approve it. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to go back to the first thing I had started to mention, and that was SB 24-12093, Department of General Services. This request, again, is to approve the rejection of all bids for contract number GS 16810 RRR for the Mitchell Courthouse roof replacement.
Good morning, VP Middleton, Mayor Scott, Comptroller Henry, and honorable members of the board. My name is Berke Atila, Director for Department of General Services. I have my Chief of Capital Projects, Marwan Al-Karajat, with me, and I'm going to actually turn it over to him since he's been the expert on this saga.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Attila. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Comptroller, board members. As the Director said, my name is Marwan Karajat. I'm the Chief of Capital Projects Division, Department of General Services. We're rejecting this bid because it far exceeds the engineering estimates and the project budget. And we have a plan in place to revisit, restructure the plans, and seek alternative procurement options.
Or segmentation.
Or segmentation of the job. Yep.
Could you talk a little bit about the plan?
Of course, we can.
This is like really a wonderful thing I'm noticing here because it's
Absolutely.
been a long conversation for many years.
One of the thoughts we have, this project mainly is a roof. However, there are other accidental scope of work included in the roof, like replacing a major HVAC unit that sits in the roof for years, which is not in use anymore. To dismantle this mechanical unit, to bring it down, you need a crane, and you need kind of logistics that may have contributed, in our opinion, to the inflation on the increased cost of the project budget. So we might seek alternative options by utilizing our on-call contract, HVAC contracts, to dismantle the units and bid the job for roof only as a single trade. The other option would be is to seek other alternative procurement option. Sourcewell, as an example, the state job contracting, job order contracting, where they have an itemized catalog pricing already established. So again, this is the plan we're taking. No guarantee that it's going to be different. However, we believe at this point, based on our due diligence and the engineering estimates, that this number is inflated.
Thank you.
Thank you,
for
Madam.
those details. Any other questions? Yes, Comptroller Henry.
So am I right in remembering that this bid has now been rejected 3 times?
Correct.
Okay, so were all 3 rejections because all the bids exceeded the engineer's estimates?
No, only this time.
Okay, that only, okay. And we talked a little bit just now about your plan for the 4th solicitation. Does any of your plan for the 4th solicitation include the possibility of having your engineer give a higher estimate that will be more in line with what current market costs are?
Absolutely. Every time we put the job back on the street, we revisit the engineering estimate. We take a second look. We look at the market inflation. If there are changes, we will change it. But if no changes, we would like to stick to it.
Okay.
If I may add, we also look at the bids in the past, the engineering value, not just what we bid it out, but what we got. And we always compare within a short period of time, same companies bid have inflated what level versus the expected market rates. And that was a glaring indication that the bids have just, the bids we received have just gone up significantly more than what we expected in the market to see. So that's also a
This is how
contribution.
we learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from other board members? Seeing no further questions, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. This item is approved. The next item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 31 and 32, SB-24-12446, Department of General Services. This request is to approve an emergency procurement with Metropolitan Protection Services, Inc.
Hello, me again, Berke Attila, Director of Department of General Services. As you know, you may know that we provide armed and unarmed services for our city's campus. And the previous vendors who were providing this service have notified the city that they no longer are available to be able to provide the service, which has necessitated the emergency procurement to put in place while we are putting the bid out on the street to get a longer-term contract, which we do not want to do is we want to be able to provide the level of service that has been provided before, and this is that stopgap measure before you to put that emergency in place until such time we have the bid comes in and award the long-term contract.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the board? Comptroller Henry?
Thank you. So we had a lengthy conversation previously about how the city determines when it needs to use armed security versus unarmed security. And since that policy was put together and put into place. How has that gone in terms of, has there been any difficulty in using that policy to evaluate agency requests?
Not that I'm aware of, because these requests can only come when and if only we get a new building or a change of a building, so that's rare in nature. And in preparation of the Saratoga Street buildings, 310 and 311, being back in the city's portfolio, hopefully as of August 1st, we anticipated that would be the first building that we need to use this, but we're working with the state and having that building probably wait until we decide its future. We'd taken over with the state that the building needed to have armed security services, so that was a clear cut from us. But the process, we didn't have to use it so far. And the only reason why we're adding the Saratoga into this contract is anticipation of that the ruling of the process would lead to armed security services needed in that building anyway, so we wanted to put it up front in the contract. Should we then decide, let's say, unarmed, it's easier to not do that. But if we were to not add that as an armed, but the process rules that it needs to be armed, that we would have to come back to you as a change order. So that's why the upper limit that adds that building into that.
I'm sorry, what's the use of that building going to be?
Right now is undecided. We're evaluating the downtown campus. We have to have this building back because the state terminated their conditional purchase agreement. That means that we have an opportunity to redistribute our administrative campus. We need to expand because we have growing needs. We could turn it back to a development. So that's all of that work that we're working for that building right now. And that's going to take time. And we just need to ensure that the buildings are safe and secure. VP Middleton exactly knows about having buildings vacant and then what kind of problems there may be.
Definitely.
But we have occupancy requests that are already that we're going to entertain. We're working with your team, real estate department.
But if there's no use in it yet, why are we defaulting to armed security for it?
I think that the logic behind was that it is easier to scale down than to scale up in the contract. Because if we don't put the contract amount, assuming that work, and we would have to add that contract, which would be then a change order coming before you. So we rather have the upset limit there, then we can decide, because we were already satisfied a ceiling, as if we were to deploy armed services for this building, then yes, we will have the capacity to do so.
I technically follow that, but I guess I would be concerned that if the building's not being used yet, then the only thing the security is protecting is literally the building itself.
Correct.
As opposed to the people in the building.
Correct.
And I would question whether anyone has talked with the law department or risk management over whether the increased liability of having armed security warrants the taking, protecting a vacant building seems like a questionable thing to risk shooting someone over.
You're absolutely right, but I want to add some information to that. Sure. Again, technical part we're agreeing on, that the ability to be able to scale up and down with the contract that is there. And I do also want to ensure that we have been working with all of our partners, finance, the mayor's office, CA's office, law department, risk, because this building's coming to us. But we do have occupancy plans from the day one.
So we do know that we are putting someone in there. We don't know who they are, or we do know who they are?
I would rather not share that right now because it may not be public information to those maybe going there.
So we know we're just, not all of us are we. Okay.
I'd like to add, I can relate to this need as we get buildings from the city school system that are turned over to us in our districts, and those empty buildings are within communities, and things happen in those buildings, from fires to stealing copper and just a whole lot of things that disrupt our communities, and this is something that is definitely a need. So These things have been occurring for many, many years. So it's not just a safety mechanism for the building, it is helping to protect fatalities in the communities, or people that, children can get into these buildings just to play around. And
All the more
it's a
reason not to
danger.
send armed security in there. Because that would be an awful situation for someone to be worried about someone stealing copper and such, and so they go in there and they think they're, up against somebody who's trying to steal from the city, and they accidentally shoot a kid or somebody who's just playing in the building where they shouldn't be.
I'm sure they have a routine where they walk around, and it's not just sitting and waiting for something to happen.
More of a
There's
deterrent than reaction.
these- Right. Go ahead.
Comptroller Henry, we're more than happy to brief you on our soft plans of occupation of that building, because it is in city's interest to also occupy the building until such date that we decide is fit in the future.
Okay.
And we do have actual expansion growth needs that DGS is currently dealing with, and I know that we're working with Eric's team for some of those as private leases, and then we have been using Saratoga as a potential option. So we do have a short list of operations that slated to occupy, hopefully, the moment that we take over.
I look forward to the conversation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the board? Seeing none, seeing no further questions, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
This is an emergency procurement. It just needs to be
Oh,
noted.
we don't have to go through that.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 102, SB 24-12426, Law Department. This request is to approve a settlement agreement and release with Shakira Davis. David, I'm sorry.
No problem. Matthew Bradford, Chief of Staff for the Law Department. Matthew Bradford, Chief of Staff for the Law
You
Department.
got to turn it on.
Oh, there we go.
Just
Thanks.
speaking louder doesn't help the people.
Matthew Bradford, Chief of Staff for the Law Department. Madam VP, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Comptroller, members of the board. The Law Department is requesting approval of a settlement in the matter of David versus King. The lawsuit concerns an August 10th, 2020 motor vehicle incident at the intersection of Baltimore Street and Patterson Park Avenue. Shakira David was traveling eastbound on Patterson Park Avenue. At the same time, Justin Michael King was traveling northbound on Baltimore Street in a fire department ambulance with lights and sirens activated. As Mr. King approached the intersection of Baltimore Street and Patterson Park Avenue, he proceeded through a red light without confirming that the intersection was clear. The ambulance then collided with Ms. David's vehicle, and as a result, she suffered injuries. Although emergency vehicles are provided certain privileges when responding to emergencies, they must operate emergency vehicles in a reasonable manner. And given the circumstances here, the Law Department requests the board authorize settlement in the amount of $30,000. The incident was subsequently investigated by the fire department, and the driver was disciplined after the incident.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the board? Seeing no questions, I would entertain a motion to approve this item.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. This item is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on non-routine agenda is a walk-on item, SB 24-12596, Department of Transportation. This request is to approve a developer agreement number 1927. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Vice President and honorable members of the board. I am Director Corinne Johnson, here to speak to you about this developers agreement, and I will actually be turning it over to David Fram from our right-of-way division to give you the details of this. Thank you.
And before you begin, I'd just like to recognize Councilman Zeke Cohen of the First District. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. David Fram, Department of Transportation. Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice President, Mr. Comptroller. So this developers agreement is water installation for the 500 block of North Packard Street for the Associated Suppletions of the United States. It's a routine item. They're going to be renovating the building, and in doing so, they need to come to us to provide a surety bond in the amount of $34,152 to protect the mayor and city council's interest.
Any questions from the members of the board? No questions.
Second.
Motion to approve. All those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. This item is approved.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, comment.
I just wanted to take a moment and to embarrass the city administrator and wish her a very happy birthday and ask all of us to do the same thing.
Thank you. Happy birthday. Are we going to sing?
Did the city solicitor bring her a...
Stevie Wonder version. You got to do Stevie.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Faith. Happy birthday to you. Many more. As there is no more business before the board, we will adjourn. The next regular scheduled meeting of the Board of Estimates will occur on Wednesday, July 24th at 9 a.m. And I thank everyone for tuning in. Baltimore, stay safe, and we love you.
Hi, TV 25. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Estimates bid opening for July 10th, 2024. We have one addenda to share today for the Department of Recreation and Parks, RP 24809. This is for the Robert C. Marshall Field renovation. The new opening date for that bid will be July 24th, 2024. Again, that was for Rec and Parks. RP 24809, Robert C. Marshall Field renovation. That bid will now be opened on July 24th, 2024. Today we are opening 4 bids, and we are going to be starting with the Department of Recreation and Parks. RP 23802, the Bocheck Gym additions. Is that supposed to be an acronym that I just named?
Nope.
Cool. Okay.
All right, so for RP 23802, Bocheck Gym Editions, the first bidder we have is WM Schlosser Company. I can spell that for you.
SCHLOSSER.
Yes, I was just bragging that I could spell it. And this has a bid bond right here.
Thank you. That's signed.
That is signed, and
Very good.
this should have an amount. Oh, it's that one. Sorry, I'm not tall enough to see it. Is that it, or is it the one further back? Oh, that's the bid.
Right here.
Oh, that's the full. Okay, and the lump sum for this one is $12,298,000.00.
I see you're back to practicing naming the whole number. So that was
Second grade,
1,
Mrs.
2.
Gray's looking out.
1, 2, comma 298, comma 000.00. Very good. We don't happen to have checks involved in these.
Nope, just a bid bond.
Very good, thank you. That was WM Schlosser Company, Inc. for $12,298,000.00.
Okay, the second one is from that one. I haven't done this in a while. I'm getting out of practice. Plano Kudon Construction. this should have a bid bond. And they have a bid bond. And let's find their lump sum. Nope, that's not it.
The teleprompter is picking up bid bond as bit bones. Should have bit bones.
It's actually on this last sticker. It's just on reverse on the paper. Yeah, like
It's on the back side.
right there. Yeah.
Should be.
They just have this one right here. Just turn it around.
Are you looking at page 75?
Yeah, there should be a lump sum for the, like the other one. Okay, because this is just the MBWB affidavit, so usually it's stated twice.
Yeah, that, we had the MBWBE page.
Yeah, it was
the
just.
total.
Yeah,
But
okay.
you don't see it anywhere else?
It should be on another page, too.
Oh, please. Let us examine our copy more closely. Here it is. It's page 57D, total bid,
Thank you.
Same amount.
and it is the same amount.
Okay,
but
good.
We should read it off that page.
Okay, there it is. Ah, thank you. Okay, and for this one, for our friends from Plano Kudon, 11,133,000
Okay, that was 11,133,000.00.
That's correct.
Okay, that was for Plano Kudon LLC for $11,133,000.00. And that was our final of two bidders for RP 23802 Bocheck Gym Additions.
That's correct.
Up next is Department of Public Works, SC 7803, drainage repairs and improvements at various locations.
Sorry, need to not be wearing this. So the first bidder we have is from Monumental Paving. They have a bid bond, looking at it. And the total bid for this item is $8,180,000 and no cents.
That was 8,180,000.00.
That's correct.
And are you about to hand Shalonda a copy?
Yeah.
And no checks in these. Okay. 8180.
All right, the next one.
Oh, I'm sorry, let me,
Sorry.
Monumental, let us get the copies organized, but that was Monumental Paving for $8,180,000.00. Okay. Next.
Okay, the next one is from Spinello Companies. This is a bid bond. And the total bid is $9,973,300 and no cents.
Okay, that was 9,973,300.00.
That's correct.
That was for Spinello for $9,973,300.00. And I think we have one more.
Yep. All right, and the third one is from Civil Construction LLC. This has a bid bond. And the total for this is $7,989,800.00.
That was 7,989,800.00.
That's correct.
Okay, that was Civil Construction LLC for $7,989,800.00. And that was the final, pardon me, of 3 bidders for SC 7803, drainage repairs and improvements at various locations. Nate was testing that chair for us. Nate was testing that chair for us. That's the new chair. Chair's good, thank you. I don't know why we're getting new chairs, but we are. Up next, for the Department of Public Works, we have SC 1030, Urgent Needs Improvements to Baltimore City Sanitary Sewers in various locations.
All right. The first bidder is Monumental Paving. La la la. Let me put eyes. All right. It has a bid bond.
Thank you.
And the total bid is not spelled out, so bear with me, everyone. $9,695,000.
Okay, that's 9,695,000.00.
That's correct.
We have a total with 38 cents on our copy.
Oh, sorry, with 38 cents. I thought it was unit price. Apologies. I don't know what I thought it was, friends. Thank you, Shalon.
So that was 9,695,000.38.
Thank you.
Like to be precise.
If this comes down to a lowest bidder of 38 cents,
It could make all the difference. We don't
it
know.
would make all the difference.
Monumental Paving for $9,695,000.38.
All right, next up we have Spinello. We have a bid bond.
Thank you.
Okay, and the total, $9,493,300. 0 cents.
That number was 9,493,300.00.
That's correct.
And that bidder was Spinello for $9,493,300.00. And I believe that was the final of 2 bidders for SC 1030, Urgent Needs Improvements to Baltimore City Sanitary Sewers in various locations. Up next, and our final opening for today, is for the Bureau of Procurement for RFQ 000570. This is for the retro commissioning study for a large building. Did this get delayed? Why is that? Okay, that sounds really familiar.
This has one bidder, ABI Advantage, or we're going to call it Abby Advantage, in honor of Abby, who's usually here.
Hi, Abby, we miss you. You're feeling better.
And the total bid is $94,000.
Okay, that number was 94,000.00.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, the one and only bidder for retro commissioning study for a large building is ABI Advantage LLC. Bid amount of $94,000. And that was for RFQ 000570, again, the retro commissioning study for a large building. And that was our final opening for today. So our next bid opening is at 12 noon on July 24th, 2024. So we will see you all then. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks, TV 25.